Everybody, welcome to the Super Dynasty Bros podcast. I am Ben, and I am joined here with Austin. And you probably are following up on the next episode from the rookie QB episode. We are going to be talking about rookie tight ends right now, and we have five guys right now that we want to talk about. Right at the top here, we have the tight end that is kind of being put as the tight end one, and that's Tyler Warren. He was a three sports star coming out of high school. He was a late breakout. Honestly, I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that he was sitting underneath Theo Johnson and some other really good Penn State tight ends, but he broke out this last year. I mean, he basically had 104 receptions, 1,233 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns. He was the John Mackey Award winner, first team All Big Ten, second team All American. And something interesting because Tyler Warren is a very versatile tight end. He actually ran a lot of his, when I was watching the tape, direct snaps as well as out of the running back position. So he had 26 carries for 218 yards and 4 touchdowns. The guy has excellent hands. He's a great route runner that separates really well. He's not extremely fast, but knows how to separate from a defender. And I mean, like I said, he'll take direct snaps from the QB position, but can also throw. There were a couple times where you'd see like a direct snap right to Tyler Warren with Drew Aller right on the side, and Tyler Warren's got an arm. Like he played quarterback in high school. He can do it. Um, he wins after the catch, has good contact balance, great footwork. There was one play at USC where he snaps the ball and catches it from the QB for a touchdown. So, like, you have to think about that in your head, right? Like, when you watch the play, you're like, but yeah, so he literally had to snap the ball, get it to Drew Aller, runs in the end zone and catches it. And it's like, this guy can do it all. And I think,
It's like a
exactly,
flag football
yeah.
play.
To me, Tyler Warren gives me vibes of, a Brock Bowers type. I'm not going to say Brock Bowers because Brock Bowers is one of one. He's a special player, but
Hmm.
some of the way that he plays, where it's just that versatility, that's the way that the NFL is going with towards their tight end position.
Hmm.
They should be able to block in line. They should be able to play out of the tight end line up out of the tight end position there. Then they should also be able to play in the slot, out of the halfback, take direct snaps. We're going to talk about a couple guys tonight that do exactly that, and I think Tyler Warren is kind of your poster child for that.
Hmm.
Um, what I see as far as he's getting some comps to T.J. Hawkinson, and that's all great. Let's talk about some of the downsides because I think right now a lot of people are very wary of the cost. And I don't know if the opportunity cost is what it's
Hmm.
worth compared to some other tight ends that will give you some similar play later in the
Yeah.
draft. Um, we've been talking about it a lot in the Discord, and,
Hmm.
and Tyler Warren's going somewhere around, I've seen him go as early as like 103 and 104, and that's just nuts. I don't even care if it's a full point tight end premium. That's you probably should not be doing that with Tyler Warren. I get that you
Yeah.
might have a tight end need and you're reaching, but to me, I probably would say no earlier in the 106 or 107 in those exact situations, right? And in other tight end premium
Hmm.
sets or no tight end premium, you're talking even later, like into the second round for no tight end premium. I mean, I really don't know that he should escape the first round in that situation, but he's an interesting player. He didn't break out until that last season, and so I think a lot of people will look at that piece of it. But he's also just being considered that tight end one this year. Austin, did you get a chance to watch the tape on Tyler Warren?
I did. Very impressive. I think to me, he's clearly the tight end one here. I look at him as a guy that it really doesn't matter the landing spot because he can get
Yeah.
involved in so many different ways. I think when we're talking about, like, I'm going to talk about Colson Loveland in a minute, I think he's the guy that could be amazing, but it's very much like he needs to get in the right landing spot. For me, Tyler Warren, I think about the Colts as one that that he tends to get mocked to, and that seems like a bad landing spot. But it's like, if they can put him in situations where he can play, a little fullback, a little tight end, maybe handoff out of the backfield, and he's a really good blocking tight end too. So he's going to stay on the field. He's going to get a lot of opportunities. I think there's a pretty high floor for Tyler Warren, and that's why I think he's a very safe pick. And I like him as the
Yeah,
clear TE1
he's
of
a
this
lot of fun to
class.
watch. And again, I think it's just the fact that
He
he
is.
can. I think I was even watching. This was real time when he was playing Ohio State. Um, it was the big game because I think at that point, um, Ohio State might have had one loss on, and Penn State was still undefeated. And they were just doing all these graphics of like Tyler Warren in each position. It's like, who wouldn't want that on their team? The guy can be a lineman. He can be a
I know.
quarterback
Yeah.
for some plays. He can take direct snaps as a running back in the Wildcat. I think it's again, you see shades of what was like what you would see out of Brock Bowers, and it's you know I love the potential of that.
Well,
I'm
can
a believer. I'm going to be taking some Warren, but only if he falls to me at like that, even as early as 105 in a full tight end premium. Like I'm not taking him any.
yeah. Imagine he gets in a situation where he gets goal line touches as a running back and gets 3 or 4 or 5 touchdowns. I forget who it was. Maybe it was one of the guys in our live stream, but just talking about, imagine Taysom Hill, who's actually a good tight end. Like a guy that actually is like a very good tight end, but also has the skill set of like ability to get rushing
Right.
touchdowns and a short yardage running back. It's like there's some pretty
Yeah.
high upside with Tyler Warren.
Which yeah, let's kind of flip it to the other type of tight end that could end up pushing to TE1.
Yes. So there's the two guys that I think are clearly head and shoulders above the rest of the class, at least as far as like NFL prospects go. I think that there's some guys further down that I think could be very exciting for fantasy. But it seems like there's two guys that are going in the first round. Most mocks have them in the first half of the first round. That's
Yeah.
Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland. Colston Loveland, 6'5", 245 pounds. Um, Last year he caught 56 passes for 582 yards and 5 touchdowns. And on the surface, those numbers do not sound very impressive. 56 for 582 and 5. However, this is like a historically low volume passing offense. Those stats, 56 or 582 and 5. Each one of those numbers is more than twice what anyone else on the team had. So 56, the next closest was 27. 582, the next closest was somewhere in the 200s. I can't remember. I don't have the number in front of me. And then no one else had more than two receiving touchdowns. So the dominant, lion's share of the target share, the yards, the catches, everything. So very consistent performer in a low volume offense, but pretty solid numbers considering that. He had basically the same numbers in 23, 45 catches, 649 and 4. So very similar. He's a great athlete. Watching him, like if I was just kind of dropped into the middle of a Michigan game, didn't know who he was, I would think he was a wide receiver. You just watch him out there, the way he plays, where he lines up a lot of the time. He looks like a wide receiver. He runs great routes. He has great hands. He's a former basketball player, and it really shows. Like you can see the way he high points the ball, the way he kind of boxes people out to get into position. Um, he had an open target rate of 88.7%, which is the highest of any tight end. The downside is the blocking. He doesn't seem to be a great blocker, and I know that you can kind of get away with that in college, but in the NFL, it's going to be hard to
Hmm.
consistently stay on the field if you're not a very good run blocker. And so I see him as very similar to like Dalton Kincaid. I think there's upside with his ability to be a mismatch for defenses. But the question is he going to consistently be able to stay on the field if he doesn't improve the blocking? I think he's a little bit more like I said before, little bit more landing spot dependent than Warren. If he gets in a good situation where he's going to be used and get a lot of targets, um, I think there's a lot of potential there. But we've seen some of these guys. Kincaid's one example. We've seen Kyle Pitts. These guys that are great college players. They kind of profile more as a wide receiver almost than a tight end. And they seem to not quite live up to the hype in the NFL. So hopefully that changes with Loveland. But that's why I think well, his floor is definitely lower, I think, than Warren. And I also think his ceiling is somewhat capped just because I'm not sure he's going to be able to be a consistent,
Yeah.
an every down player. I think that he'll just be a guy that plays in passing situations, which might still be good enough to be very productive. And I expect, like, I think I'll rank him as a top 8 dynasty tight end, like as soon as he's drafted. But I still think that there's definitely some questions and a little bit
Yeah.
more than there is with Warren. So that's why
Yeah.
I think he's the tight end too.
I I think there's a reality where, depending on the landing spot, like you're saying, he is the tight end one. I mean, if he lands in Los Angeles with Jim Harbaugh and he's being force fed the ball,
Yeah,
besides McConkey, by Justin
right.
Herbert, like I'll take it. And he's, again, we talk about opportunity
Yeah,
cost. Loveland is costing you the end of the first versus Warren is costing you middle of the first. So they're both going to be first
yeah.
round tight ends.
I see Loveland go
What's
201,
that?
202 in a lot of drafts. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
see
yeah,
Loveland go 201, 202 in a lot of mocks,
yeah,
even in
yeah.
even in tournaments. Yeah,
So when I see that, like, I might take more of a shot on Loveland overall in my drafts when I know that it's not costing me as much. And, those are most likely,
yeah,
unless they were traded picks, championship teams that, hey, you could take a shot on. Like, this guy could be the tight end
yeah,
one from this class. Let's take a shot here. Of course, if like Hunter's not there and anything like
yeah. So it's certainly
that.
possible.
But yeah, so
Yeah,
I think
which I think at this point he's not going
yeah.
to be.
Harold Fannin, man.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the next tier because in my opinion, and I don't know if you might disagree with this. I know you actually before we got on the show, you're talking about how much like it's hard not to fall in love with Harold Fannin with the tape that he shows.
Yeah.
I think for me it goes Warren Loveland in the same tier, Fannin in his own tier, Arroyo and Taylor right there. That's just me. But I also just really
Okay.
love the prospect that Harold
Yeah.
Fannin is. So, and also just kind of a cool story. He was an
Hmm.
unranked recruit with one FBS offer in Bowling Green State. So, like there's one other player that was basically 0 star coming. Cam Ward was basically left for dead in regards to where he was and had to start at Incarnate Word. So I just love to see the
Incarnate
story
Word.
where it's
Yeah.
like by their bootstraps they just raise themselves to be great soon to be NFL
Yeah.
prospects. And so he was unranked, one
Yeah.
FBS offer from Bowling Green, played safety and wide receiver in high school, and then transitioned to tight end when he got to Bowling Green. One cool stat from last season was that actually he led the FBS in receiving yards and in receptions among all wide receivers and tight ends with 1,555 yards and
Yeah.
117 receptions. So he averaged around 3.77 yards per reception and forced 32
He's
missed tackles last season. 32 missed tackles is insane. And honestly, this I don't know. This is where the sustainability part comes into question. He demanded a 38% target share at Bowling Green, which was the highest in the nation. So we know that he can dominate as the focal point of an offense, but the question is he going to get the keys to
uh
do that? He's actually the first tight end in FBS history to be named consensus All American and earn the MAC Player of the Year award. Some of the strengths that I see with him is that he does have an elite receiving production, as we kind of talked about earlier with what he did last year. He has advanced route running skills, so really good footwork, really precise, able to change tempo and fake out defenders with head and shoulder fakes. He creates separation against man and zone coverage, excelling at all three levels on the field. He has exceptional hands shown by honestly his stat of 2 drops and 171 career targets. Great hand-eye coordination, great ball
Oh,
tracking ability. He adjusts to off-target throws and catches through contact. And his versatility, just like Tyler Warren, is that you can run him anywhere. He can run out of the halfback. He can run in line, but also at the same time go flex. And a lot of times they would run him through like jet sweeps and different you know designed runs where they would give the ball to Harold Fannin. They force fed him the ball. That's really what it breaks
Yeah.
down to. The guy has great yak ability. So I mean, he had 868 yards after contact and about 29% of missed tackle rate, which was the highest among tight ends. Um, and you know, here's the thing, and I think this is the part where for me I'm sold because he's done it against Power Four teams. There was two games last year against Penn
Yes.
State and Texas A&M where he combined for 19 receptions, 282 receiving yards, and two touchdowns. He did it against the big boys in the Big Ten and
Hmm.
in SEC. So,
Yeah.
some of the weaknesses that people are worried about with Harold Fannin is his size. He's a little bit smaller, so they're a little bit concerned about his ability to run block and things like that. But he's going to do what you want him to do, right? Like, do what he was successful at Bowling Green and just force feed him the ball, whether that means he is catching it, flexing out wide or taking the direct snap, use his versatility. And I think that, like we were kind of talking about earlier, the blocking is important, but I think he can work on that. I think where you're taking Fannin is
Hmm.
for his versatility and what he can do. Like just he's a baller. He made some great catches when I was watching the
Yeah.
film, and just great hands on the guy. Now we talked about the limited blocking experience. Talked about level of competition, and yes, you could look at the flip side. The other 10 games he played against very little competition, and it was
Mac.
a small sample size of good teams. But the other piece of it too is the combine didn't help him. He had an average RAS score of
Yeah.
7.64, and ran a 4.71. So I think a lot of people started pushing him down their boards once they saw after the combine because prior to the combine, a lot of people were talking about Harold Fannin could be the tight end three from this class or higher. But I think the people that believe in him still see what he did in the film. A lot of actually two
Hmm.
comps that I see. Oddly enough, I don't agree with the Dalton. Somebody I saw online Dalton Kincaid. I don't agree with that. I do see Evan Engram a little bit there, and I believe Chev even mentioned in one of our shows that we've done previously. Or no, actually that might have been Mike, but Delaney Walker, and I like that comp too. I think those are all successful NFL players, successful NFL tight ends. I
Yeah.
like Harold Fannin, and I think if I'm going to be taking him anywhere, give me him in this late second, early third round where he's kind of being mocked right now, compared to he's the poor
Mhm.
man's Tyler Warren.
Yeah. I like him a lot. Like I think that he has, of anybody besides those top two, clearly the highest upside. I mean, we've seen 1,500 yards in college. Like you said, the 873. I guess it depends on when you look about the
Yeah,
exact yards after contact, but somewhere in the 870 range of yards after contact. That's more than Colson Loveland. That's more than Arroyo. That's more than Mason Taylor had total yards. Total yards. And his were, yards after contact is more than any of them had in total
was
yards
that your
last
was
year.
that your
So,
stat that you were
um,
hoping I wouldn't get?
like you talked about, that was the one I had in there. But yeah, he had, like you said, 137 yards against Penn State, 145 against Texas A&M. The thing that I think is a little bit like you talked about that 38% target share. He had a 50% in zone
Yeah,
target share for Bowling Green last year. That's just like completely unsustainable. But but it is like so I do think that you can't expect like that level of volume. But we've seen the ability to make plays out of a lot of different situations, and I think it's just like some of these other guys that we're talking about here have never had more than 500 or 600 yards in college. So just being able to see, obviously, it's a completely different game. Playing in the Big Ten or the SEC or is very different than playing in the MAC. But being able to see that he has the ability to have that high level production, that yards after contact, the toughness. I think there's a lot to like. It's hard to watch the film and not be like, man, I want
yeah,
this guy on my team. But the thing I worry a little bit about is just it seems the NFL scouts aren't quite as high on him as a lot of fantasy football people are. And if he kind of goes to a situation, it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up in a situation with a team that already has another tight end, and he ends up not playing very much. Uh, I, I I see another potential comp that I see is maybe like a Jonnu Smith. I think a guy that, yeah, obviously Johnny's a little bigger, but sort of that same type of role where he can play out of a lot of different formations, a lot of different positions. Not really a super um, like fast athletic guy, but a guy that can, if you give him a lot of volume, can make a lot of plays. So I think that's a interesting comp. But yeah, I like him a lot. I I have him currently as my tight end four, but to me, it's really a three-way tie for third between Mason Taylor, Elijah Arroyo, and him. It's just, I think a lot of it's going to come down to landing spots.
Hmm.
Which one's going to have an opportunity for playing time?
Yeah, yeah. I like Elijah Arroyo as well. I it's really going to end up being landing spot dependent. I actually saw some mocks where Elijah Arroyo is going to Lions, and I was like, I kind of want that. Um, we have Laporta, but to get a second tight end like Elijah Arroyo that's got the experience that he does in college, being I think he played like 8 years at Miami. He had like some weird workaround in being able to get the COVID year and some of those other things where he was in college for 8 years. He's got the experience, but I think he's probably going to end up being a day two guy somewhere, late second round, early third round, but landing spot is just going to be so dependent for these guys.
And the guy that I really like that I think a lot of people were, I think when we were talking in the Discord, a lot of people were surprised that I put Mason Taylor as my tight end three. I just see him as he's of all these guys in this class. There's a lot of guys that are basically wide receivers playing the tight end position, and Mason Taylor to me is a true tight end. It's him and Tyler Warren are more the prototypical tight ends of the class. I think they'll be able to stay. They do everything well. Will be able to stay on the field consistently. He had 3 years of very consistent production. He's got great genes, the son of Jason Taylor. Um, his best season was 2024, 55 for 546 and two, but he's the first tight end ever in LSU history to have 100 receptions and 1,000 yards in his career, finishing with 129 receptions and 1,308 receiving yards over his career at LSU. Just very consistent, solid production. Really does everything well. He's not like a superstar, but his hands are good, his routes are good, he's a good blocker. Some scouts say that his run blocking needs to improve some. His pass blocking is really good. Um, he's a safer pick to me, but has less upside than Fannin and Arroyo. I think he's just a very safe and solid pick. Kind of boring, but I see him as a guy that's going to have a long career in the NFL. It seems, as of now, I mean, this could change, but it seems like NFL scouts view him as the tight end three, and he'll probably be picked as the third tight end off the board. If that changes, I think that changes some of this. But I think part of what I'm building into thinking of him as the tight end three is that he's going to get the best draft capital and the best landing spot. And if that does not happen, I think that obviously, if you're wanting to take more of an upside shot, Fannin could be the guy. I think there's a lot to like about Arroyo too. But I think all three of those guys are kind of in the same range. It depends on what kind of a bet you're wanting to make. Um, I like that Taylor was a consistent producer in the SEC in an offense that doesn't typically feature a tight end with a lot of really good weapons at wide receiver around him. So it's not like like you look at a guy like Loveland who was the number one option, but basically put up the same stats as Taylor. He had more touchdowns, um, but the yards and receptions are very, very similar. And so I like that he was able to be consistently produce, and he seems to be, catching the eye of NFL scouts. And if he ends up going in the early second, as he's being mocked a lot of the times to some of these tight end needy teams, I think he'd have a potential to be an immediate impact guy. That especially in tight end premium leagues can be an immediate force in your lineups as a rookie potentially. And so I think he's the guy outside of those top two that has the best potential, I think, to be a producer in 2025.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think you had mentioned it, Austin, about him kind of being the love of scouts more so, and you just did it actually in this episode, being the love of scouts more than fantasy owners. and that says a lot more about a player's like trajectory of them ending up going higher in the draft. Like Mason Taylor's likely for sure a day two guy. Um, and they're going to try and work him in to be that prototypical tight end as you were talking about. And he could be a solid starter for you in fantasy going forward. He probably just doesn't have the upside like we were talking about
Yeah.
Fannin and Arroyo, where they could
Mhm.
probably break the tight end game if they were to just continue their production as they were in college. So
Mhm.
I mean I think they're right all in the same tier together. Personally, for me, I'm just very much higher on Fannin in general because I think the upside is exciting for
Yeah.
me, but there's also sort of the question marks like does that translate to the NFL? Um, and I think that's a good wrap for the show, right? Like
Yeah.
we're about to find out in 3 days. This is recording on Monday. So you're
Yeah.
probably gonna be seeing this Wednesday, and you have one day before the NFL draft starts, and all of these pieces and chips are gonna fall into place. And you see a
Mhm.
Mason Taylor go to the Jets in the second round. I don't know, just
Yeah.
spitballing just a random landing spot.
Yeah.
But they could make it happen and then your board changes completely. And so I have a lot of rookie drafts starting on Monday following the draft or Sunday actually following the draft. And there are gonna be people on the clock with 4 hours or 8 hours of their pick, looking for trades, but also asking the question like, well, now that we have the landing spot, like who do I take here? And that's
Mhm.
going to be something that we're going to be going through with our followers, just figuring out together about what makes sense for your team. Because at the end of the day, process is best player available, and then after that, you take what you need. But it's going to be a fun week. I think we're going to get a lot of answers towards a lot of questions that we just have been burning in our heads for the last like 3 months. But you know,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a fun process. This is actually the Super Dynasty Bros first NFL draft being around just because we started last fall. But this is
That's
an
right.
exciting
Yeah.
time. Austin, like how do you feel about it, man?
Man, I'm so excited to finally get answers. I feel like we have all these questions like, man, I feel like all of these conversations we've had this whole time is like, I really like this guy, but it comes down to landing spot, draft capital. I feel like we say that over and over again, and it kind of probably gets annoying to a certain extent, but it's like it is true. It's like so much you can only like a guy so much if he gets stuck in a spot where he's never going to get an opportunity. The NFL is such a cutthroat business where there's, you know, tons. I mean, there's hundreds of new players coming in every year. And, there's always a fresh new thing. So a lot of these guys, like if you don't end up in a good spot where you're going to get an opportunity, you're going to be replaced by someone else next year. And so it's very important to get draft capital and landing spots. And I also
Yeah,
think not only that, but it also shows the higher you go, it shows commitment. Teams are committed to you. They want you.
motherfucker.
And yeah, I also think that it also shows that the scouts like them more. I mean, as much as we talk about it and love to talk about, assess talent of players, there are guys that are paid very high salaries to evaluate these guys. And when they give the green check and they say this is the guy we want, that should go a long way in how we look at things. Is like these guys, the top scouts in the world think that this guy is worthy of this pick, and that has to be part of the calculus when you make your draft picks. Is man, I like this guy more than this guy, but the NFL likes this guy 2 rounds more. So how does that change how I look at it? Is it possible that they know something that I don't? In fact, it's almost certain that they do.
Yeah.
So that is definitely a factor to consider going into your drafts. But we're gonna get a lot of answers to a lot of that stuff. Um, here in just a few days. It's very exciting.
Yeah. I think just make your popcorn, sit down, and just enjoy because at this point, it, these scouts already have in their head like who they're going to take and what scenario happens when that player lands in their lap because they're basically just waiting on the team ahead of them too. just like
Yeah,
we are in our rookie drafts. So it's going to be an exciting
for sure.
time.
Yeah.
Um, we're going to be active, across X, TikTok, Discord, ready to answer any questions in regards to potential trades, player selections, things like that. So,
Yeah.
Austin, I'm excited for the week, man. I hope you enjoy the draft. I will
Me
see
too.
you after all of this when we head into our rookie drafts.
Yes. It'll be fun. It'll be fun. I'm
Sounds
looking
good,
forward
man.
to
Well,
it.
we're signing off. Have a good night,
Yep.
guys.
All right. Sounds good. You too.
All right. Well, we had a good ending there.